Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to a new week. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market and revisit the Ethereum supercycle idea. But first, we'll take a look at the market right now as Bitcoin continues to fight its range top over here, waiting to see which direction it's going to pick as it's battling against the resistances. We won't spend too much time talking about this today. I've talked about this several times on my weariness of the situation of where we're at right now and what commonly happens in these scenarios. Should Bitcoin get a clear break through these levels, hey, we'll have something new to talk about. Otherwise, here we are on week 2. I guess we're starting week 3 at this point of still battling up here against the top of the range after making a very quick move up. We've just really stalled out right here, waiting to see Bitcoin choose a direction. But it did a markets in the morning live stream this morning. I had several different questions, and I figure we can kind of dive into these because those can get quite long, and it's not the chosen format of everybody. I know that some people prefer videos in one way, and they prefer live streams in another. And I figured I'd address one question in particular that I've been asked quite frequently. One question I get asked about a lot has been with Ethereum. Now, with the total altcoin market cap, we all know it's still continued to hold that all-time high, including weekly candle closes up here, still holding supports, somewhat of a double tap of the all-time high, but still waiting for a bigger breakout to emerge to show the reversal really coming into play here for the altcoin market. But one I get asked about a lot is with Ethereum and whether or not Ethereum has followed what it has done in previous super cycles and if I think it's going to end up following a super cycle. Now, I do know there's a lot of tribalism out there, and I'm not here to really play the tribalism game. I'm really here to look at charts and acknowledge that Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency in the cryptocurrency market, the first one behind Bitcoin, the number one by market cap in the altcoin market. So it deserves addressing because it is the number one by market cap outside of Bitcoin. But what we saw happen with Bitcoin back in our previous cycle in here is that we just kind of keep repeating the same cycles over and over again. In 2020 and 2021, we kept pointing to the previous super cycle and that Bitcoin had behaved precisely as it has in the past, and that even the entire 2018 through 2020 bear market was really just the pit stop that we had in that previous super cycle that we had back in 2012 and 2013. As we came up for our tops in here, things were still just the same, and we had just once again repeated a super cycle. A lot of people expected $100,000 for Bitcoin. However, our super cycles indicated that was not the case. But considering that Bitcoin has done 3 super cycles of the same magnitude, the question is out there of whether or not Ethereum can do the same thing. Put us on the daily time frame here to show what the past cycle of Ethereum looked like, its major super cycle of 2016 through 2018. And that even when we made our pit stop currently with where we're at right now, it mimics that of what happened during the first pit stop of the past super cycle. As we saw with Bitcoin, our last super cycle pit stopped just as it did in previous ones. And yet here we are making similar style corrective structures that are prolonged as we did in past ones. And the incredible thing is that from the supercycle perspective, really reaching up to the same levels as it did in the last. Now, one thing is obvious here. It has pulled back deeper than it did in the past one. However, we can see that it pulled back below here. And here we are. We've pulled back below here as we did in the past one. But I get asked, do I think that it's actually doing this? And this is one of those scenarios where I have to remain unbiased on which one it's going to do. Now, I'm biased for retracement. I've always said I'm biased for retracement, and I've been saying that since June in here. So it's like a broken record for the longest time. I'm biased that Ethereum, that the cryptocurrency market, that Bitcoin's going to go back into a retracement, and that I think that's coming. What I cannot tell you what will happen is what happens beyond the retracement levels. Should we get back here, it becomes the question of, is this a wave, a retracement, a wave, a retracement, or do we start firing off and going on into another bull as the altcoin market has shown that it's holding the previous all-time high as a support, double tapping it, similar to as we did back in 2016 and 2017, in which it was tapping on top of the 2013 all-time high to then go ripping and roaring. That's a very good sign to see that happening over here in the altcoin market, that, hey, we're doing something very similar. And that moment in time was in here for Ethereum. So here we are doing this. When at the same time, back in 2016 and 17, that's what this was for Ethereum at this time. And here we are on top of the all-time high doing something similar again. So those are great things to see, but it doesn't change anything I've said for a whole year. For me, it is really about having to get back to those retracement levels. Once you get back into retracement levels, then the market will get to decide what happens. I do not have bias on that this is the circumstance that ends up happening for Ethereum. But should Ethereum break through into new all-time highs, that will become my thesis. Maybe not as high. We'll see how it goes at the time. But if Ethereum does break out into a new all-time high after this style correction, these style corrections typically keep rampaging. But I won't know any of that until after this area gets completely tested in here. And so the reason why I bring that up is because I've been seeing that question being presented more often. Do you still think that we're on track to do this for Ethereum? Well, I don't necessarily think we're on track to do it. I see that we're doing something very similar to it, but it's not like my grand thesis. My grand thesis has been what I've said for the last year. Hey, let's get back to here and see what the market does. And for me, I'm taking some profits on the markets once we get back into retracements. But I think it's good to kind of like rein in a little bit of the excitement right now and the thoughts of something like that and the ideas that these things are going to go 30x right now, because that's typically what happens. And what we have to be wary of when you go back into retracements is that people will typically capitulate back to being bullish at retracement levels. And then that's where the market will completely stop out at. And we're starting to see kind of early signs of it right now, of people starting to get a little bit excited, starting to kind of let their mind wander a little bit, thinking of like really crazy things happening right now. And you know what? Maybe Bitcoin just goes back into a retracement and the market does rally. And finally, things like XRP start to take off and things that didn't set new all-time highs finally start to take off. That stuff's all possible. In retracements for Bitcoin, that's historically what happens. Either retracements or breakouts into new all-time highs. The rest of the altcoin market goes, Bitcoin dominance falls. But I just really wanted to kind of rein in the excitement on this one currently right now, because it's been phrased of, do you still think it's going to do that? I'm not sitting here saying I think it's going to do that. And like, because the reason I have to rein in those things is I'm looking for us to get back to retracements. I'm looking for this market to get back to retracements. But one thing I've always warned about when we get back into retracements is that everybody gets super excited that we are going into a bull market right away. And so what you'll see is everybody who sold out down in here, they all buy back up in here. And the play was to buy the bottom and sell the retracement. But that's not how typical people behave. When things are really bad, they sell. And then when things are really good, they'll buy. But that's the opposite of what traders will do or technical analysts will do. And then, you're saying, hey, look, retracements. And then you get back there and then the market is screaming, 50x incoming. This is just the danger zone, right? And so the contemplation of things like this happening in the market isn't on my mind right now. The main focus on my mind is getting to here and what I'm going to do in here. What is the market going to be doing while we're in here? How is Bitcoin reacting? How is the altcoin market reacting? What is going on in the market as we are back in here? I'm not even worried about Ethereum up in here right now, up in new all-time highs. It's not something that's in my thoughts, and that's not inconsistent to what I've said all year long, is that a retracement, right? And so people are always saying a retracement can't come. Well, it looks like we're working on getting ourselves one here really quick. And so once we go back into it, then the thought becomes, wait, this isn't a retracement. We're going all the way. And boy, I would sure love it if this actually ended up happening for Ethereum. It'd be fantastic. It'd probably be great for the rest of the market, right? I will cheer for that all day long. But the most important place on the chart is this stuff in here. So it's definitely cool to see the prices acting like we've seen them happen in previous super cycles. I think it's possible. I know it sounds crazy. You look at these prices. These prices are silly. $70,000, $80,000 for Ethereum. I don't know how you'd get that. You would likely have to see the stock market do something amazing, right? And so that's a conflict I have, right? I have a conflict about the stock market. And so that does hamper my thoughts here. But when you look at Ethereum as well, and you look at the price behavior of it, right? The initial big sell-off, the attempt to break out into the new all-time high, the failure, and then the capitulation below. What do we have here? We have the rise up, the initial big fall, the attempt to set brand new highs, the failure, and then the capitulation, right? These things are all the same. And then when you zoom in on these two, you have 5 waves in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have the same thing in here. And like your phase right now, currently for Ethereum, if you are actually at the bottom and you're getting ready for this thing to break on its way out of here, you're in like this phase right in here right now. So really the first thing that you'd want to see for Ethereum, or that I want to see for Ethereum, is at least a big breakup, get above $3,000, and let's do it fast. Definitely means pulling back happening afterwards. But, to get excited, I think that's the first thing that we need to see. We at least need to see the break up into the retracement levels and then see price behavior after that. But so far, so good. It's still it's weird to say it. I don't feel comfortable saying it, but it is playing the same way as it did back in here. We got up to the same levels within a super cycle, and this bottoming structure, while drawn out, all of this being more drawn out, this is the same. The next phase of this to remain the same would be for a big breakout to come in here. And so for those hoping for something crazy for Ethereum, that would be your next move you'd want to see, right? So like if you start doing anything like this, that's not that great. But for those who are looking at super cycles, and we saw Bitcoin literally act like it did in 2013. So in the 2021 phase and 2020 phase of the market was identical to 2013. And so if you're looking for something identical from a super cycle perspective for Ethereum, the next phase you'd be looking for is to get a big breakout in here to about $3,000. You got a big breakout to $3,000, it'd be looking pretty good. So you have to say, is there any legitimate reason on why the price would just suddenly have a big breakout that would happen right here? Why would a breakout happen from this moment in time right in here? Let me change the color. There we go. Why is this level important? Well, let's head back over here. Look where we are. We're right underneath that support level that held it in the summer of 2021. So we're actually in the fight right now. So it needs to kind of have a big breakthrough there to show that this resistance is no longer anything. And it's funny because that's just what we also see happening in here, is that's how you get it. You get the big breakthrough. And that's what we need to see. We need to see Ethereum just get a big fat crack through there. So the conditions also remain same over there for Ethereum on the monthly time frame, like we've talked about with Bitcoin and for the altcoin market, right? You have all three of these indicators. At least you have the stock RSI, you have the relative strength index, and you have the moving average convergence, divergence, the MACD. You have all of them triggering what has happened when the bottom is already in each of these, of like we've seen historically. So you've got all the good signs there for Ethereum. The big question is going to remain is what happens at retracement levels. So I had one question very specifically asked, do you still think that it's doing that? And I have to be very clear that I don't think that it's doing it at all. I have to remain entirely unbiased on it and say what I think it's doing is heading back to retracement levels. What it does after that is what dictates what I think next. If we can get through retracement levels, then I can really entertain this. But I have to be very wary of rejections from retracement levels. So I have no bias except for my bias of getting to retracement levels and then waiting for the market to tell me what bias to have next. But I can say that everything that is going on in here is insanely similar to what's going on in here after having a run of equal magnitude and stopping at the same place. And that this time period for Ethereum right here is the same time period that we're having right now in regards to backtesting the previous all-time highs on the total altcoin market cap in both scenarios. So structurally and market behaviorally, very similar. And I'm foaming at the lips and foaming at the mouth to think that the market could do that next. But it doesn't change a thing I've said all year long. Hey, I'm looking to get back there. And then from there, I'm gonna sit back and say, what you doing next, market? And that's nothing new for me to be wary at retracement levels. It's the reason why it's on the 702 on the intro of this channel. You got blockchain backer kind of panicked there at the 702. And hey, break out of it. Let's rock and roll. But there's a reason to be scared there because we can't get rejected. And so my bias is to get back there. But of course, as we get there, that's where I have to sit there and say, hey, man, this is where all kinds of things can happen. So my point being, I got asked the question, do I still think it's doing it? And I just wanted to be clear, it's not about me thinking that we're doing it. It's about retracements for me. I'm monitoring this. I'm watching the price behavior of this to see if there's similarities to that, to be wary of it, of being like, my grand thesis is to get back to retracement levels and I'm going to take profit on this market. But what happens if it does crack through there? Do I just sit there and be blindsided by it and not say, well, this is what could be happening? No, I say to myself, well, I did notice this was going on in here, and maybe that's what's going on. If it rejects from here, I say, well, you know what? That's what I kind of expected the whole time. I expected the market to get back to retracement levels, and then that was where really all the danger sat in there for the market. We're getting rejected from here. I'm not surprised. This is just what typically happens. But if something else happens, and then if Ethereum suddenly just setting new all-time highs, it's like, well, wait a minute. We're talking about the stock market getting rejected and going down. We're talking about Bitcoin going down. Why is Ethereum setting new all-time highs? Well, we have something to look back on and say, well, wait a minute. We've talked about all of this. We were backtesting the all-time high for the altcoin market. Ethereum was really following what a super cycle looked like. That might be why it's still continuing to go, and there may be a whole lot more upside left in Ethereum. So my grand thesis is there. Should it get through, I have kind of a backup thing to look at. But to sit here and say, do I still think it's doing it, or are we still following it, right? The question is, are we still following it? Well, you could see what the next phase of this was. You could see there was like a short liquidation. There was a massive breakout that happened right here for Ethereum. That phase would be coming from right here, right now. That's where this breakout kind of happened at. So see some type of major breakout happen in here for Ethereum to really take out these price levels over in here. That would be one more positive check mark for this. It doesn't change what I'll do in these areas right in here, but it definitely would be another check mark to say, man, it is still acting just like that. So really the next move that I'll be keeping my eye out on for Ethereum will not be to see that it's kind of just a grind on its way up here, but are we going to get something aggressive to come out of here? We've acted very similar to how we've acted in the past. If some massive candle shows up, hey, that's one more check mark for maybe something crazy is going on here. So I'm definitely monitoring this. I'm definitely keeping my eyes on it. But really, if we're going to keep doing this whole thing, this is still going to be what's going to be playing on out here. A big fat candle coming upwards is what would be next. So if we see one of those pop up in there, this market's about to get pretty exciting. And I know that Ethereum is not the chosen asset of everybody who watches this YouTube channel. I know there's a wide variety. I know there's a lot of tribalism out there. And, we focus on a lot of XRP content here on this channel. And there's no question when the SEC filed their lawsuit against Ripple and the damage they did to XRP at the time that they did, there's a lot of resentment back and forth there between Ethereum and XRP. And I try to kind of ignore that. And it's actually been a long time since I've done an Ethereum related video. And I own some Ethereum. So I'll talk about the things that I pay attention to and the questions that I get asked. And the cold hard reality is Bitcoin and Ethereum are the number one and number two digital assets in the cryptocurrency market. And I don't think it's probably helped anybody's pocketbooks by holding resentments against those. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to follow the biggest ones in the market. And in my next video, we're actually going to be focusing on XRP. And we'll really show that stuff too on XRP because we're going to talk about when XRP really kind of has the opportunity to take off. And we'll show how that scenario was there and how Ethereum really benefited from it when XRP got hurt by the SEC. But we'll talk about those scenarios in which are very positive for XRP. So that'll be coming up in the next video. Otherwise, as for Ethereum, the next thing I'm looking for is, of course, I'm still just looking for the retracement. However it wants to get itself there, just bring on the retracement. But if it wants to follow, if it wants to continue following how that thing played back there in 2016 and 2017, be looking for like a really fast candle moving from where it's at right now to close to $3,000. That'd get my head scratching even more to say, man, are you serious? It's still following it. So that's kind of where my eyes are at least for Ethereum at this point. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. It's been a long time since we've done an Ethereum video. It's kind of fun to do it. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.